Welcome back to the Alien Spaceship Talk Show podcast. And in case you're just joining us, you're listening to the Alien Spaceship Talk Show podcast with Emmy, Hikins and Trevor.
Soul and the spirit, as I say, for me, that's one and the same thing. But yeah, you're right in terms of what happens to the body and so on. But to think of this as we're trying to stick to this idea, though, that do we have a soul? Is the soul responsible for our personalities and everything about us? And is the body just a backup engine that's doing all the heavy lifting, if you like? So, you know, we can ask that sort of question. But I think there's a couple of problems there, because what happens, I'll tell you a situation, a story that was in the paper, the Boston Post in America, a good few years ago. I think it was possibly in the war years or in the 40s. I don't quite remember. But there was a guy called Phineas Gage, and he worked for a railroad company where they were laying railways across the country. And he was a foreman. He was a very respected man, leader of his team. And the company that employed him, I think, felt he was about their best ever employee. Well, they obviously had to blast stuff away to make a way for the railroad to go. And he was tamping some powder, some explosive powder, to do just that, when all of a sudden the powder exploded. Now, what happened is the tamping pole he had, it was 3 feet, I think to be precise, as I remember, 3 feet 7 inches long, and it was about 1.25 inches in diameter. So it's a pretty wide pole of that length as well. Well, when the powder exploded, the pole entered his face through the side of his cheek. It shattered his upper jaw, went behind, very quickly, all this, of course, went behind his left eye, came out the top of his head. So you can imagine that the hole that was made, and it then landed about 25 yards away. Quite an incredible thing. Now, Phineas Gage wasn't the first man to have a fractured skull, but he was the first man, or first person, to ever not only survive it, but incredibly, he remained conscious throughout. Quite incredible. Wow. And anyway, obviously the emergency happened, and this was the story as told in the Boston Post. The first doctor to arrive, I can't think of his name, it may have been a Dr. Williams, but anyway, he asked Gage, Phineas Gage, what had happened, and he explained it all in perfectly normal talk, incredibly, which made the doctor think, well, I think he's confused. I think he's deceived on this. This can't have happened, as he said. But then when Gage stood up, he vomited. And as he vomited, the pressure, the action of doing that, expelled about a half a cup of tea, half a cup full of his brain out. And of course, there was already some out there. But he remained conscious. Anyway, so then, of course, the doctor, he recognised the gravity of this whole situation. Well, anyway, his case was actually looked at by a Harvard professor who noted that this was the most important thing about this case was its improbability. And he said it's totally unique in the annals of surgery, historical surgery, totally unique. Anyway, Gage's own doctor monitored him, and after a couple of months, he gave a report to the effect that Gage was doing well. He was walking about the house. He was free from pain. Obviously, he'd had surgery to try and repair the hole and all the rest of it. But anyway, he said he was doing well. And the last line of what the doctor's report said, he's doing well if he can be controlled. Well, this was looked into more. Now, of course, he hadn't gone back to work. But gradually, although he was, on the face of it, returned to what he was, in reality, he wasn't. And this was now manifesting itself in his behaviour. He became very obstinate. He was a good, decent man, I believe, a religious man. and he looked after his team when he was working, and of course he had a family. But it turns out that he became not only obstinate and difficult, but he started using the most gross profanities in his language. He was never a swearing person, but he was now doing this and becoming basically thoroughly objectionable to people around him, such that I think a few months after the event, his friends, colleagues, I don't know about the family, they don't say, but his friends and colleagues and acquaintances said, this is no longer Phineas Gage, not the Gage that we knew. And I don't know what happened to him in the rest of his life. He obviously went on, he lived, I've got no record of him dying. He obviously has died since then, I imagine. But it was a quite unique case. But the point that it makes, I think, in an interesting way, is that if the brain is damaged,
We're going to take a short break now. We're back shortly. You've been listening to the Alien Spaceship Talk Show with Trevor and Emmy Hikins. The Alien Spaceship Talk Show podcast is looking for sponsors. If you're a company out there looking to spread the word about the products and services you provide, please get in touch with Deepstuff Radio Podcast on info@deepstuffrecords.com, or to use the contact form on our website to contact us, please visit radio.deepstuffrecords.com. Also, if you're looking to get involved on the Alien Spaceship Talk Show podcast, reach out via our Deepstuff Radio Facebook page. Thank you.